My name is Barb Davis. I work for IRIS, which is Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services down in New Haven, Connecticut. And IRIS is a refugee resettlement agency. There are about 200 refugee resettlement agencies across the country. And it's important to understand that when you're thinking of the term refugee, many of us have a very general idea of what that term means. It's someone who had to flee their country, their homeland, because of persecution, because of war, because of natural disasters, lots of different reasons. And there is a general definition for refugee. But there is also a very specific legal definition, an international legal definition, for someone who obtains refugee status. Now, the way that happens is someone who has to flee their homeland due to war, persecution, oppression, political violence, the membership in a social group, and more recently, they just added to the criteria the LGBTQ community, because in many countries, as most of you I'm sure understand, it's a very dire situation for people who are in that group. So that is a very specific criteria that can be used to obtain refugee status. However, that person or that family, they must flee their homeland, they enter a second country. Once they get to that second country, they have a choice to make, a decision to make, and it's a pretty big decision. It's, can I go home? Will it be safe for my family, for us to live there again? Or can I stay in this second country and build a new life? And often, even though they're safe from war or whatever political violence is going on, the answer to that is no. They can't stay in that second country. That's a temporary situation. They can't have access to health care. They aren't allowed to work. Their children can't go to school. So there is a third option. They can go to an office of the United Nations. They can apply for what is known as refugee status. If they decide to do that, they will go through a vetting process that lasts years. It involves all different kinds of investigations, and if they get through that, and the UN decides that they do in fact qualify for refugee status, then they are assigned to a participating country. There are about 25 or so participating countries around the world, including Australia, Germany, the UK, France, the United States, obviously, Canada, Argentina. Those are some of the places a family might be sent to start over completely with nothing in their possession. As you can imagine, that is a huge leap of faith for a family to be able to say, I will go somewhere where I know no one, I probably don't speak the language, and I have no idea how the society functions, or very little idea. So, very brave people who make it through, very strong people who make it through, resilient people, the kind of people the United States wants to have here, survivors. So, if they make it to the United States, if that is the country they're assigned to, then they're assigned to a refugee resettlement agency. One of them is IRIS. We resettle families that come from Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Yemen, many parts of Africa, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, different parts of Latin America, including Venezuela, and El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala. Also, Haiti, Cuba, people who have gone through that process and are welcomed here by IRIS or another refugee resettlement agency. And what resettlement agencies do is we find housing for when they first step off that plane. We help connect them to employment, to medical care, to English classes. We help enroll their children in school. Any kind of assistance they might need to get a good, fresh start here. IRIS is also a very special resettlement agency. It's the largest in Connecticut. There are two others that are our partners. But IRIS is special in Connecticut because it uses a community co-sponsorship model. And what that means is community groups all around the state organize a group, get trained by IRIS, they fundraise, and they welcome refugee families into their own towns. There are actually refugee resettlement groups, community groups that welcome families to Danbury. There's a group called Danbury Area Refugee Assistance, and that is my other hat that I wear in the refugee resettlement world. I help lead Danbury Area Refugee Assistance. We've worked with 3 families. They all started out here in Danbury. They're all doing very, very well. The last one was from Afghanistan, a family who was evacuated back in 2021, if you remember that news story. So, refugee resettlement is something that is one of the greatest American traditions, welcoming people here who are the wretched refuse globally, like it says on the Statue of Liberty. But they're also a vulnerable population, often a minority group that arrives here. And just as so many of the marvelous speakers that have already shared, they also need to have allies and people who have their backs. And we are very lucky here in Connecticut that all of our delegates, both in Congress and our 2 senators, are supporters of the refugee resettlement program. Many of our state legislators are. I can't describe to you what it is like to welcome someone who's stepping off a plane and is starting their life over, and you help them for about a year. You get to know them very, very well, and to see them succeed. And it's not easy. It is very much an emphasis on self-sufficiency, because this is America after all. That's part of our culture. It is important that you can pay your own bills. It's important that you make sure your children go to school every day. It's important that you can do these things without having to rely on others or the government too much. That is an emphasis of this program, and it's very complicated and very difficult. But every refugee I have ever met has made it through with flying colors. So, anyway, Iris wanted to lend our voice to your mission. We are so honored to have been invited to to explain how refugee resettlement works, why our voice matters in this mission that you have, and also, if you want to get involved, come see me, because as I said, there are many groups right in this area. There are groups in Middletown, there's groups in Norwalk. As Rick told me earlier, he knows the group in Woodbury. They're everywhere. They're always looking for volunteers. So see me if you're interested. But thank you again for the invitation, Brian, and everyone who does this amazing work you're doing. I have been just so honored to be here and at Our Voice. Thank you.